Sorry about that little squelching feedback. Damn.
Hey, we got Rose.
Indeed. Good morning. All right.
Is she one of the left coast people that watches us? Is it like 4 a.m. for her or whatever?
Let's do this. Good morning. Look what I found. It's back. I got him back. Speaking of friends, okay, so we're going to be talking about deep state stuff today. And we're going to be taking off our tinfoil hats for once. Because, yeah.
Yeah, and replacing them with battle helmets.
Right? But I just wanted to say, because I see people in the chat, and I see this often in the mornings, where people are saying good morning to each other by name. Rose says hi to Pit Danny. Danielle says morning friends to all of us, and I appreciate that. Stryker says hi to Pit Danny. Rose and Stryker both said hi to Danielle. Pit Danny says hey to Sean and Rose. And guys, I absolutely adore that in our chat, you guys interact with each other like that. It's like you've got friends that you've never met, that you hang out with for coffee every morning, almost every morning with us. And that really, really does my heart a lot of good. And these are people, some of you know each other in the real world, IRL, as it were. Some of you don't, and I have a pretty good grip on who is and is not interacting outside of the show, but the fact that you guys are friends here and have that kind of community, I really enjoy that. And something that I don't know if this is sad or awesome or somehow both, but I bet that you don't have many friends out there in the real world that you interact with as frequently, even if infrequently, more meaningfully, not as frequently as having a cup of coffee with us and chit-chatting with people in the chat almost every weekday morning at 7:30 here live on the Brushfire Mind, and that is awesome.
Yeah, and then your dad had to go all Robert Heinlein on it and be like, what is the real world? We're not going to do that this morning. It's Woke Wednesday, and I really wanted to talk about Avatar 2 and James Cameron and all that. But golly, like that Twitter stuff, right? Like, haha. Hey,
we keep thinking it's as bad as it was going to get.
What if the federal government paid Twitter millions of dollars to lie to you? What if that happened? No. Is this the Babylon Bee? Is that what? No. Unfortunately. And look, let's be clear, okay?
Wow, I have all the other supporting evidence. Except for that one.
and look, let's be clear. I'm pretty sure that I've said this on the show, and I'm going to reiterate it just to make the point. They lost their minds when Elon was going to buy Twitter and started to say, I'm going to be a free speech absolutist and all that other stuff. They were terrified about what Elon was going to find at Twitter with regard to shit like this. And I guarantee you that Twitter is a bit player. Okay, like the percentage of the population that actually engages with Twitter in any meaningful way is minuscule. Okay, however, if it were to be discovered that maybe similar things happened at the Facebook and the YouTube, etc., etc., it'd be pretty terrifying. It'd be what's the word? We just had sci-fi reference. Dystopian. That's what it would be. It would be dystopian. And yet, here we are. We're no longer we're no longer theorizing that this happened at Twitter.
Correct.
We are sure of it. As in, well, can I read? I've been gone.
Get you some.
FBI paid millions, had close relationship with execs and staff, emails show. The FBI paid Twitter nearly $3.5 million between October 2019 and February 2021 as compensation for the time its employees spent managing their requests, according to the internal documents published by author Michael Schellenberger Monday as part of the ongoing Twitter files.
And let me clarify that. It says according to emails. Emails show. Okay, so we're not saying that we have this theory. We're saying that the evidence has been exposed and it's out there in black and white for everybody to see. The FBI was actively engaged and paid Twitter millions of taxpayer dollars.
And I like how cute they put that, where they're like, oh, well, yeah, I don't know what that hum is either. I suddenly just heard it as well.
Is that the heater? It's not the fan.
Nope. Anyway, I like how cute they put that. Spent time managing their requests. Yes. It's sort of like how when the mob says, "Listen, kid, you're gonna blob. I'm gonna do you a favor," right?
Well, okay. So actually, let me clarify what they mean here by. For the time its employees spent managing their requests. So the way this works with an agency like the FBI or somebody, it's similar to the way that things like the Open Records Acts, Oprah request type stuff go, Freedom of Information Acts, things of that nature. It is your right as a citizen to have access to information. And the Freedom of Information Act allows you to petition the government to release public records to you. Now, it would be possible without certain safeguards in place for one of us to just go and file a request, and in order for the government to stay in compliance with the law, they would have to produce reams and reams of paper until they literally bankrupted themselves. Now, you would have to make some pretty outlandish and expansive requests to get to that extent, but the kind of other side of that is if you file a Freedom of Information Act request, you're going to pay for the documents that are delivered. You're not paying for the information. You're paying for the agents, the various representatives, the office workers. You're paying for the actual stationery, the printing, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the law, similarly, if the government, like, say, for example, the FBI, comes in and gives you an order, forces your company to do work on behalf of the government, then they have to reimburse you for the cost of that work being done.
It's like eminent domain. Oh, we're gonna widen the road in front of your house, but we swear we're gonna pay you for it. And that's when I get back to the mob example. Hey, kid, we're gonna do you a favor. And yeah, if you do what the mob tells you to do, they will pay you well. But if you don't, they break your kneecaps. I mean, it is what it is. Can I read more? Because it's just like I imagine most of you in our chat already know some or all of this, and yet it cannot be stated that rather it cannot be overstated. Hammer this point home. This is one of those things that needs to penetrate the normie bubble, and it's going to be tough, okay? Because You're basically going to try and convince them that one of their biggest nightmares is actually true. It's just in their safe space that one of these things happens to be true. But it has to be done. It's too important. I mean, I see people in the comments saying, hey, it's time for the gallows. And this is like spooktacular levels of stuff.
Yeah,
okay?
Sergeant Major asks, what is Chris Wray doing? He's sucking. That's what he's doing.
Oh, yeah, no, they're debating whether or not they want to pursue charges against Donald Trump, the guy that got screwed over by this conspiracy.
Yeah, and by the way, over the last couple of years, we've heard that the FBI just doesn't have the resources to pursue things like school shooters, that they already knew that these kids were a problem and needed some attention. Didn't have the resources to investigate the
various amphibious priapisms.
Right. Didn't have the resources for that investigation. Right. We hear over and over again, well, the law enforcement agencies just don't have the resources for X, Y, and Z.
They have the resources.
Say that again with a fucking poppy on. When you're spending $3.5 million, and that's just to one company, to Twitter.
Just Twitter.
Sending 80 agents to work at Twitter, almost 200 agents to work at Facebook. We'll get into that in just a minute. Say that again, that you don't have the resources.
Well, I mean, they've got to have at least 50 agents available every time Bubba Wallace says there's a noose on his garage.
The fact of the matter, we don't have enough law enforcement available to go and enforce all of the obscenity laws and make sure that children aren't being allowed into strip shows, where the strippers are trannies.
Again, look, I don't want to get off on it, but look,
you keep telling me you don't have the resources to enforce the law, and yet somehow.
Yes, after the Hunter Biden laptop story broke, a member of the FBI's Office of the General Counsel spoke with Twitter's then Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker. Look, it's Jim Baker again. It's sort of like how Strzok and Stroke kept popping up in all those...
Hey, what do you know?
It's weird how that happens. A former FBI agent in a private call Schellenberger reported, obviously our work with the FBI is close hold and we will never get public credit. They want credit for this. But I would like to thank our FBI counterparts who worked so well with us this election cycle, wrote an unidentified Twitter employee asking others to sign a thank you letter to the FBI in December 2020, according to Schellenberger.
So, y'all remember, there was the article in Time magazine.
We fortified the election.
The secret cabal, the shadowy cabal to fortify the 2020 election. And they spelled it out, right? They said, this is how we did it. There was coordination between government entities and certain private sector entities, and they were actually careful not to name certain names. They named a lot of names, but they were very careful not to mention certain things. This is it. This is the shadowy cabal that they were talking about. This is the entire federal slate of deep state actors. This is the FBI, the CIA, DHS, the whole alphabet soup of deep state, actively working against the interests and the wishes of the American people to conduct not an insurrection, not a revolution, a coup.
And if you pay really close attention, really, really, really close attention, they don't think they were engaged in a coup. They sincerely believe they were stopping one. I think, if anything, this proves that Donald Trump was the disruptive influence. Now it's gone. That Donald Trump was the disruptive influence.
Yeah, I think it was the heater.
That we thought that he was. Because they hated him so much, they were basically willing to activate their entire network that I think has been in place for decades at least. But they were willing to activate their entire network to push him out of office. And look, okay, it's not just Twitter. It's not just Donald Trump. It's the things that we're allowed to say on these various social media platforms. I'm gonna skate the absolute edge of this rail. Watch this, Chris. Watch this. Remember how for a long time there were just certain things about COVID and the vaccine that sucks. Like you couldn't say the vaccine sucks, for example.
Right. Well, you couldn't even ask the question, is this actually a vaccine?
Yeah, we weren't even trying to be dicks.
We found that out the right way.
Yeah, we weren't even trying to be dicks when we did that show. We were just saying, hey, this mRNA, it's experimental technology. Is it correct to call it a vaccine?
Right, and technologically it's dramatically different than what we understand the meaning of the word vaccine to mean. But should we have a new word?
But what I'm getting at is we were not allowed to ask that question, to have that conversation, or our YouTube channel would get a strike. How long?
Got strikes.
How long, with stuff like this coming out, how long before there are certain things about the amphibious priapism we're just allowed to say on YouTube because there's just too much fucking evidence?
I have a better question. How long before we see actual consequences for some of these people? How long before we see Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Alphabet, etc.? How long before we see them paying out millions and millions of dollars, being bankrupted by legislation and prosecution over the absolute criminal activity that they were engaged in? Right? Forget about Section 242. There was straight fraud going on here. And I'm not talking about an amphibious priapism there. I'm saying that Twitter, by suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story, forget about the election generally, that was fraud. Because if you remember, they didn't just suppress the story. Agents, intelligence community agents, came out and explicitly stated this is Russian disinformation.
Yeah.
And we know now from these leaks, we know now from the internal communications, we now know beyond the shadow of a doubt that as early as 2019, right, the Hunter Biden laptop story broke in late 2020. Mm-hmm. But that story, let's not forget, it happened in 2019. The FBI, by the time the Hunter Biden laptop story broke, the FBI had their hands on the laptop and its contents for over a year, knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was actually Hunter's laptop. And then they attempted to spin this bizarre narrative that it wasn't Hunter's laptop. What happened was somebody else went and got a laptop and filled it up with all this Russian compromat misinformation and then planted it there for this computer repair store guy to deliver to us. And we've said it 1,000 times, they think you're stupid. They wanted us to believe that convoluted pile of lies was the more probable scenario than Joe Biden's crackhead, shithead son got coked up out of his gourd and forgot where he left his computer. Right? So what you have here, the January 6th committee, right? They just recommended Donald Trump for charges. Yeah. And one of those sets of charges is conspiracy to defraud the American people. Let me be very clear. The FBI, and I do say that the entire organization should be held accountable for this, the FBI committed that crime. Now, the only defense that Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, and, well, basically every newspaper that's not Breitbart or the New York Post, basically, Daily Wire, et cetera, but all your major media outlets, right? The only defense that all of those organizations can possibly have from being involved for being direct co-conspirators involved in that conspiracy to defraud the American people over publishing and republishing the claim that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. Their only feasible defense is to argue that they were coerced under threat of force by the federal government's FBI, who is absolutely the one engaged in the conduct of that particular conspiracy to defraud.
We were talking about this before the show. Like, the FBI, they don't have to threaten you. They just have to ask, right? It's the FBI. How many times will the average person tell the FBI no?
So I'm polite.
No, see,
In generally dealing with people.
I said the average person.
No. I understand. I'm gonna bolster your point here. I'm very polite. I go out of my way to be super nice, and I'm always in a great mood, right? I tend to be, and I deal with people very politely. Sometimes I'm a little too polite in public with people I don't know, and in large part because when I was about 20, my dad was, I think he was concerned because there had been some, I must have been younger than 20. I think it was my senior year of high school. But anyway, there was some kind of altercation or something. And Dad explained to me, he said, son, you need to understand, you can never make a physical threat because, and I love the way he phrased it. He said, you know, I'm 6.5 feet tall. I'm a gigantic dude, right? And he said, the mere fact of you is a threat. And I took that to heart. I paid attention to it, and he's right. It's been useful tactically, but it's also been an important warnings kind of shaping mechanism for me to say, okay, I understand that when I run into people in public, just generally, and I meet a person I've never met for the first time, I'm a big scary dude. And so, I kind of, hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. It's okay.
Teddy bear.
Type of thing, right? That's the FBI. That's all
the FBI is clearly not a teddy bear.
That's all law enforcement.
They're snakes.
Right? As soon as you encounter a badge of any kind, you have been presented with the immediate threat of death.
Well, it's that old thing about how you can't get executed over a speeding ticket. Okay, right, fine. Don't pay your speeding ticket fine and then refuse to show up for court. And then watch what happens when the cops eventually come knock on your door and you refuse to go outside.
Right.
Right? If you don't think you can die over and it's an extreme example, but it's not an entirely unrealistic example either. And in this case, and I just wanted to touch this, Yoel Roth, that absolute piece of shit Yoel Roth is, okay?
Before you say the rest of this, because I know what you're about to say.
Okay.
Yoel Roth has a PhD. He wrote his doctoral thesis
on some disturbing...
arguing that underage boys should be given access to Grindr, which is the gay version of Tinder, which is an app where you select one-night stands, like you're trading baseball cards.
Yeah, right. There has to be a safe way to allow teenagers. One does not have Tinder
or Grindr because they're in search of a loving, fulfilling relationship. One has Tinder and Grindr because they're looking for somebody they can trade money with for sex. Yoel Roth wrote his dissertation on putting minors on Grindr. You cannot be more explicitly groomer activity than that.
So this is the guy. This is the piece of shit. This piece of shit was made extremely uncomfortable by the FBI's requests.
He thought the FBI shit was creepy.
Yes. Somehow, Yoel Roth got spooked out by the FBI. And in one of these exchanges, even said point blank, I have enough training to this point to understand that I forget his exact phrasing, but basically that the FBI is running an op on me.
PSYOP, yeah.
They're running an op on me to plant the seed that this story is fake, and it looks like the story might not be fake. When you go back to the very first Twitter dump, which really spelled out how they twisted themselves in knots to deliberately interpret certain internal rules to keep the laptop stories suppressed. Not a one of them, if I can recall, actually said, "Oh yeah, this laptop story is bullshit." All of their internal messages talked about how to interpret the laptop a certain way, how to interpret a rule a certain way. If you have this as a framework,
can we list this under hacked material?
If you have this as a framework where you already know that the FBI came in and went, "I'm going to do you a favor."
Yeah. And in the internal messages you're talking about, there were questions like, the legal counsel saying, whoa. Are you really going to run with this claim that it's hacked material and that's how you're able to suppress it?
You mean the legal counsel that used to work for the FBI? That legal counsel?
Yeah, because that excuse isn't going to fly. You're going to have to find another way to do it. And they changed their reasoning over and over and over again. So so much going on here. And then
all these, long story short, all these people deserve jail. Like, absolutely, without a doubt, this was an absolute conspiracy to commit fraud. And we're not just talking about, like, Hunter Biden's son has a drug problem and took some pictures of his dick, okay? No. We're talking about things where it looks like there's absolute payola scams and potentially, Ukrainian prostitutes of questionable ages. Like, we're talking about, like, some deep and disturbing
and
stuff.
Let me be fair about those prostitutes that you mentioned. I've seen some of the videos that are on Hunter's laptop and doing research on all this stuff, and some of them are deeply disturbing, like Hunter exposing his member and lining up M&Ms on the member. But you see some of the Asian prostitutes in question here, and I just want to tell you, my friend, their age is not in question.
See that, and that's a whole nother ball of wax, but ball of yarn, whatever you want to call it. So
Alex says no, it was Jim Baker that convinced him it was hacked material. He was doing the FBI bidding. You might have missed a little bit of the earlier bit. Jim Baker was only one of several that was engaged in that. He was the most obvious voice here, but part of what we've got going on.
I think he's pointing out that you crossed over your words and actually said, and you might not have meant to, but I think you actually said that it was Jim Baker who told them to not run with the hacked material story. I think Alex is correcting you on a technical point.
Okay. No, I think I see where we got confused. I mentioned that the Twitter legal counsel, Jim Baker was their chief legal counsel. He was not the only lawyer. There were other lawyers in that conversation thread that were saying, I'm not sure if we can get away with this piece. Roth was one that was questioning some of the specific directives. Yes.
Yeah, we were Alex, we were just talking about that, how Yoel Roth, piece of shit, was made uncomfortable by this. And yeah. Have you ever seen, I think it's called Walking Tall. It's not that good of a movie. There's a version of it with The Rock, and like he comes home, almost gets killed by like corrupt local government, runs for sheriff, becomes sheriff, and then like first thing he does is literally fire the entire police station. They're like, well, you can't run this place without at least one or two. Yeah, I can. You're all fired. We'll sue. Okay. You're still fired. Right? And he had to do it that way because, even if the entire police force was not corrupt, a large enough percentage of it was corrupt to where he had to assume.
Right.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
Because here's the thing. If there is, I think in retrospect, if there's a mistake that Trump made, it was that he should have just fired everybody. I understand why he didn't. He didn't have the knowledge that he has now, that we have now.
Well, and we've said that on this show many times in the past. One of the biggest mistakes, if not the biggest mistake Donald Trump made, is upon inauguration, he did not pull an Obama and fire everybody. Now, I want to be fair.
Well, Obama didn't fire everybody.
I want to be fair. When we say Obama fired everybody, he fired everybody that was a presidential appointee. He didn't fire every FBI agent and replace them. And in the past, when I've said the mistake Trump made was not firing everybody, that's what I mean. That's what I meant at the time, was he should have fired every direct appointee that he had access to fire, and just, nope, clean house, bringing in new people, replacing everybody, replacing the cabinet, replacing everybody.
Well, you can't do that. It's too big. You'll screw it up.
It is clear now that every member of the intelligence community current belongs on the soup line.
Well, and that's it. I think that's another part of what Musk taking over Twitter has proven. Remember, like, Twitter was supposed to have failed already. Remember? Like, it was going to crash, and the servers and the people and the blah, and all the problems and everything, okay? And yet somehow Twitter's up and running and making the kind of news where I don't know how much longer the dinosaur media is going to be able to ignore it, okay? But at some point, okay, if you can come in and you can literally knock over Twitter's entire apple cart and then just, put the apples back in the cart, and it's actually not that big of a deal, why can't you do it for other organizations? And as you continue down that logical chain, don't tell me that you can't fire half the fucking government. Don't tell me you can't, because you could.
Absolutely.
And don't tell me that you couldn't, and please believe that needs to focus on leadership positions.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, you can hold on to the janitors.
Anyhow, so yeah, that's all.
I mean, quite simply, leadership, hell, easy enough. Do you have the authority to give someone else orders?
You're fired.
Yes, you're fired.
Where did you go to college at? Oh, Ivy League, you're fired.
Yep. God, I'm tempted to say, hey, where did you go to college at? Well, I went to, done. You attended a government brainwashing facility. You're fired.
Bye.
Hey guys, I'm rapidly approaching a point where I'm not willing to hire people that went to public school.
I don't recognize the name. Roger Sterling, New York, says, "Good morning, Vietnam." Excellent reference. And it says he ran an advertising agency. Where'd you go to college at is what someone says who didn't get past high school. I mean,
are you trying to troll me with a dangling participle, Roger?
See, that could be a really big, that could be an insult, or that could actually be kind of a compliment. Be like, well, look, at this point, did you finish high school? Because all it is college light those last couple of years anyway.
God. I don't know, my last couple of years of high school were mostly spent at work.
That's not how that works anymore, though.
No,
or it could be, but I don't. Man, some of the kids I work with, they're good kids.
You're right. You're right. It's a preposition. I
love it. No, please.
Brian Dawson's with us this morning.
Can the chat please keep piling up on Chris? This is amazing.
Yeah, come on, get you some. It's not like I've been here working all week. Okay, it is after 8. Do you have anything? We didn't even get into.
Just want to hammer it home one more time. The FBI knew months in advance that the laptop was real. They planted the seeds that it's Russian disinformation because they knew that it was real. And then over about a year and a half, they paid Twitter millions of your dollars to lie to you.
I got to give this one a strike.
To lie to you about that laptop. And that's just what we know they paid to lie to you about. I guarantee you there are other things we don't know. Okay, actually, I would like to touch that. Roger Sterling says these Twitter files have revealed very little new information and largely show Twitter's internal conversations around content moderation. You're not entirely wrong, but here's the way that I put it, as other people have pointed this out to me, okay? You can know your wife is cheating on you, okay? And that's bad, right? And then you can find the video that she and her lover made. Now, nothing has really changed. You've just gotten an additional layer of proof of a thing that you already knew. But that's video that you really didn't want to see. And that's what's going on with these Twitter files. Yes, anybody with a brain understood that social media companies were manipulating the NPCs en masse worldwide. Absolutely, 100%, no doubt about it. But now we're getting messages from inside the companies and people that work for them that prove that claim. And that is a subtle but important distinction.
And Roger asks the follow-up question, so where's the video in this analogy? In this analogy, the video, the smoking gun, is the actual documentation that's being released, receipts, explicit conversations back and forth between FBI agents and Twitter employees, Twitter Trust and Safety Council, Twitter Legal Counsel, etc. The actual receipts. Now, I'm going to go ahead and drop a couple of links in the chat there for you. And these are Twitter threads by, and I'll show you the ones that I'm sharing. These are some of the Twitter threads by the reporters. So there's a handful of reporters, including Matt Taibbi, damn, I suddenly can't remember the other names.
That's part 6.
But there are several reporters that have been working with Elon that he's been kind of trickling this information out through, and there's a reason for that. Barry Weiss is another one.
Keep going. Don't lose your thread, Barry.
Barry Weiss is another one, but there is an actual good reason for it to be trickled out like this. The fact of the matter is the Twitter files are a shitload of information, right? It is a huge smoking gun. It's a great big bundle of smoking guns. And the fear was that if he just drops all of it at one time, then nobody's going to be able to go through all of it at one time. They're not going to be able to go through all of it immediately, and people will get tired of just the random bits here and there. So instead, they're doing it a little piece at a time, keep it in the news cycle, keep it top of mind, keep it in the conversation, and spend, last week we were talking about there's actual coordination. We have the evidence there. This week we're talking about, no, we actually have the receipts where the FBI paid for this activity. And now we're getting from this other guy, name redacted. He went and pulled some straight weaponized autism on Facebook and went through the top names at Facebook and searched through their LinkedIn profiles and found 160, 170, 180, almost 200 of the top brass at Facebook are actually their resumes on LinkedIn show that they're 17 years at the FBI here, 16 years at CIA here, et cetera, just almost 200 in top brass. These are not low-level guys, right? Especially after a nearly 20-year career in the intelligence community. They were in the intelligence community, and then suddenly they're working at Facebook. And it's not just, they didn't just happen to go there. In 2013, Obama managed to get rid of the anti-propaganda laws, right? U.S. repeals propaganda ban, spreads government-made news to Americans. The so-called anti-propaganda law prevented the U.S. government's mammoth broadcasting arm from delivering programming to American audiences. But on July 2nd, that came silently to an end. This is from 2013. The result, an unleashing of thousands of hours per week of government-funded radio and TV programs for domestic U.S. consumption in a reform initially criticized as a green light for U.S. domestic propaganda efforts, right? That was done by Obama back in 2013. And then as early as 2016, or as late as 2016, rather, where'd the other one go? I lost anyway. Nope, here it is. At least 80 FBI agents worked with social media companies on unauthorized disinformation task force. GOP Rep James Comer, expected to be the House Oversight Chairman next year, told FBN's Maria Bartiromo that the latest installment of the Twitter files contains some things he plans to investigate. Has exposed... Okay, this doesn't have the bit about the FBI task force. Okay, so the FBI has this task force. The FBI social media focused task force was created in 2016, and it looks like from the reporter that's talking about the number of previous intelligence community agents working in these various social media platforms, the vast majority of them, all but just a few, started at these social media platforms, especially Facebook, after the FBI set up the social media focused task force. So there's your timeline right there. Obama said, propagandizing U.S. citizens is now legal. You are a go to lie to the American public.
It's not to say that it wasn't already happening. Okay, let's be clear. Like we're not Pollyannish about this,
right? But it looks like there's a pretty bright line between Obama's repeal and what was happening before that. Is you had a very left-friendly liberal media establishment, and what happened after that is the Democrat National Committee just took it over. So, okay, just to be clear about something, Mr. Sterling, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, because he's been. I'm sure you've seen that he's dropped several things in the chat there. Okay, so look, long story short, we're not saying that Twitter violated the First Amendment. We're saying that the FBI and Twitter colluded to commit conspiracy and fraud. I mean, yes, violated the hacked materials policy, but since the laptop was not, in fact, a piece of hacked material, it was a lie. It was fraudulent. So, if you want to have the argument, well, are you saying that they violated the First Amendment? No, we're not. If you watched this entire episode, you would know that we very clearly said that they committed fraud and that they lied. We did say that, but did you say that they violated the First Amendment? Yes, I have.
But on this episode, in this context?
I'm not sure. I don't. But I absolutely will say that.
Thanks, buddy. I like how you just undermined my entire point there.
Sterling says there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. I'm quoting Taibbi. Okay, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to button the show up here. I'm going to ask you, Sterling, to give me a date on that quote, because from December 16th, 2022. I've got Matt Taibbi on Twitter in his Twitter file releases. The FBI's social media focused task force, known as FTIF,
Taibbi
created in the wake of the 2016 election, swelled to 80 agents and corresponded with Twitter to identify alleged foreign influence and election tampering of all kinds. So
there is other stuff, though.
it may be that he made that claim before some of these releases, but if he said there's no evidence that I've seen, then he's changed his mind on that because of the evidence that's been made available through the Twitter files.
No, I'm pretty sure that Taibbi has tried to play both sides of this in real time. Like, just to be fair. I mean, like, if we're going to be completely accurate, then I mean, Taibbi is inherently a liberal reporter, so
He is.
But yeah. Anyhow, that's it. But 15 minutes over. That's where you wanted to button it. So
Yeah, you're right. And there's work to be did. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow. Or at least I will. You going to be here tomorrow?
yes.
Okay. We will see you tomorrow.